Hi. So, my name is Elizabeth Tin-Maung, and there is an echo in this room. My name is Elizabeth Tin-Maung, and I am a participant in a program that is concerned with the Mexican and American border called Common Ground Voices La Frontera. We are a group of people composed of 30-plus artists from all over Mexico and America. And although we are diverse in our background, our age, our ethnicity, and our musical ability, we all come together for one common goal, and that is to create a purposeful community that transcends these social borders. So we have two different ways that we try to reach this goal. The first of which is through our week-long residency that takes place in San Diego and Tijuana. It takes place in San Diego and Tijuana. This program is very focused on intensive rehearsal and artistic activities that focus on empathy and bringing about social change, social and political change, not only within our community of 30 artists, but also how to bring that social and political change back to where our respective homes. It concludes with a performance that includes art, theater, and music making, and features living composers, living Mexican and American composers, improvisation, movement, and narration. In other words, it's not your typical choir performance. Although it does conclude with a performance, the most important part of this is that the point of this workshop is that we are creating a space to create art for the entire week. And that act of making art is, if not as important, then more important than the actual performance itself. Our second workshop are called mini encuentros. They are week-long projects that happen exclusively in Tijuana. They are very similar to our workshops, They are very similar to our week-long residency, except that there is no concluding performance and that it focuses specifically on the dialogue between us as artists and includes the dialogue of migrants, refugees, and deportees. So now that I've told you a little bit about our program, gave you like the little crash course, I guess the big question is why? Why should we include music in this discussion about social and political change? What is the point? What does music bring to the table? And I want to start to answer that question with another question. So I'd like to ask, with a raise of hands, how many people in this room have felt like they were talking to a person and that person was more interested in what they were saying rather than having a meaningful discussion with you? Who has ever felt that? Yeah, that kind of is what happens when we talk about the border. When we talk about these issues concerning the border, it's often one person monologuing to an audience of people. However, that doesn't mean that these monologues are bad, but it just doesn't give the space for discussion. So what music does bring to the table is the act of listening. As a musician, I can tell you that the best musicians to work with are the musicians that sound like they are listening to each other. The ones that aren't concerned with what they're playing or their technique or the notes, but actively interacting with the people that they are making music with, in order to bring about the musical dialogue. So what happens when we bring these shared spaces of music to people who often don't have the voice or the space to create their own dialogue? Well, what we do is what comes forward from these spaces that we create is the idea that music, it becomes very cliche. It's that music brings forward a dialogue that doesn't, and I'm gonna bring out my notes now. This is our implied model for meaningful dialogue. By bringing music into these communities, we are creating a space for people to be heard, so that people can share their stories with the community and be recognized not only as a migrant, a deportee, or a refugee, but as a Mexican or American, but as a human with a rich history that cannot be contained with a single label. And so I'd like to end this speech with a narrative by a man named Augusto Boal, who wrote The Theater of the Oppressed, which is how to use art making in Brazil to bring about social and political change. We have a group of housemates. They are called Maria. Maria this, Maria that, Maria something. They are called the Marias of Brazil, and they are housemates, real housemates. They work like a housemate, and the only day free they have is Sunday, so they come to the theater. And once they wanted to do theater inside the theater, and so we did that. They were very happy, but at the end, one of them came to tell me that they were weeping after the show. I said, but why do you weep? It was such a big success. The entire audience applauded. And she said, look, it's very moving for us because we, who work in the house for the other people, we are supposed to be invisible. We should not appear. We should do everything but not be present. And so then today I was rehearsing, and there was a man throwing lights on me and said, come here so that we can see you. We are taught to be mute, and there was a man today putting a microphone here so that I could be heard. And I said, is that why you wept? She said, no, it was in the show. I was playing there. I was showing my emotions, showing my thoughts. And the family I have worked for 10 years, they were there, all in the theater, sitting silent, looking at me in the dark, and I was there. I said, is that why you wept? And she said, no, because when I went back to the dressing room, I looked in the mirror and I was afraid. I said, what did you see in the mirror? And when I look in the, what did you see in the mirror? And she said, I saw a woman. I said, but that's normal. When you look in the mirror, you see a woman. When I look in the mirror, when I, Augusto Boal, look in the mirror to shave, I see a man. And she said, no, but that was the first time I saw a woman in the mirror. Before, I saw a housemaid, and now I see a woman. Thank you.